Hi there, and welcome to this lesson. And this lesson we'll be learning about linear equations, okay? And under linear equations, we'll be learning to solve equations involving fractions. Okay, so at this point, I'd remind you to set the video to play in 1080p HD. Very important that you do so you see everything clearly. And as the lesson progresses, if you have any issues at all, anything comes of us unclear, please feel free to get in touch, okay? We would be more than happy to help out. Alright, so let's jump right into the lesson. Okay, so equations involving fractions. Now, we often have linear equations in fraction form, okay? So you can have an equation in this form. So you have something like this. You have 3x over 4 equals 2 over 5. So this is an equation, and we have some fractions in play at the moment. So when we have equations like this, how do we go about solving them? Now, there are two ways you can solve equations like this. Two rules, okay? Just like we had in the last lesson. Two rules in this lesson as well. So, the first one is cross multiplication. Okay, so cross multiplication, and when you have an equation like this in fraction form, basically you cross multiply. And what does cross multiplication involve? You basically multiply the numerator of the fraction on the left with the denominator of the fraction on the right, and you multiply the denominator of the fraction on the left with the numerator on the fraction on the right. So now what you have is you have 15x, i.e. 3x times 5 equals 4 times 2, 8. It's actually that simple. And from this point on, you basically just go ahead and divide both sides by 15, and you'd have that x equals 8 over 15. Very simple. That's how you solve a equations of this form. So now let's try. There is another method, however. Okay, so we have a common denominator. So when you have two fractions, okay, you have 3x over 4 equals 2 over 5, and then basically you're looking to solve this. You can actually solve this using a common denominator. Now, just like you would if you were adding or subtracting fractions, you find the LCM of the two fractions in play there, and I think we can work with 20. Okay, and basically we have 20 divided by 4 is 5, multiplied by 3x is 15x, equals 20 divided by 5 is 4, multiplied by 2 we have 8. Now at this point, this is what you do. You just extract what you have up there. Okay, so you have, don't worry about the denominator. Okay, it's played its part. All right, so you just extract what you have up there, and basically you have that 15x equals 8, and then you can divide both sides by 15, and you'd have that x equals 8 over 15, which is the same answer we got from the first process, from the first option there. Now yeah, that's pretty much it. Basically, when you're solving equations involving fractions, you can go ahead with cross multiplication, or you can find a common denominator. Now, depending on the kind of equation, basically you can decide to go with cross multiplication or common denominator. But let's solve some examples, and we'll make that clearer in a short bit. So if 3 over 2u equals 5 over 7, find u. Now for questions like this, I usually prefer, we have one fraction on the left and one fraction on the right. I usually prefer cross multiplication for solving these. So I have 3 over 2u equals 5 over 7, and I'm basically just going to cross multiply. So I have 3 times 7 and 5 times 2u, and what I have is 10u equals 21, because 2u times 5 is 10u, and 7 times 3 is 21. Okay, so once I have that 10u equals 21, I can basically go ahead and divide both sides by the coefficient of u, 10, and what I have in the end is I have u equals 21 over 10, which will give me 1 over 10 as my final answer. Actually, very, very, very simple. There really isn't much to it. So let's do a few more examples. Now, example 2. And example 2 gets a bit more complicated. Okay, at this point we actually have two fractions on the left and no fraction on the right. Okay, so we actually have a whole number on the right. Now, solving this kind of question, okay, I usually prefer finding a common denominator. Okay, so it's better to find the common denominator here, and basically you have 2y minus 1 over 3 minus 3. When you have two fractions in play on one side of the equal sign, basically it's usually better to find a common denominator. Okay, and basically I'm going to find a common denominator here, and I'm going to work with 12. Okay, and I have 12, and I'd say 12 divided by 3 is 4, multiplied 12 divided by 3 is 4, multiplied by 2y minus 1 is 4 2y minus 1. Okay, and then I do the same for the second fraction there, and I have 3y minus 3 multiplying 3y minus 1. Okay, and then I have 1 on the end there, i.e. 1 over 1. Okay, and basically I'll work that as well, and I'll end up with 12. So now from this point we can simply extract a numerator there. Okay, so we can draw out a numerator. Okay, and basically we have 4 2y minus 1. Just forget about the denominator now, it's played its part. You just extract the information you have up there, and basically you have 4 multiplying 2y minus 1 minus 3 multiplying 3y minus 1 equals 12. And from this point on we're just going to simplify that. Okay, collect like terms, and basically what we have is we have minus y minus 1 equals 12. And now we can move things across the equal sign, and we would have that minus y equals 12 plus 1, and have that minus y equals 13. And if we divide both sides by minus 1, okay, we can have that y equals minus 13. And that is how we solve equations like this. So basically the first thing we need to do, okay, is we find the common denominator. You would find it very difficult to cross multiplying in this case. You really can't cross because you have multiple fractions on the left. If you had just one fraction on the left and just one fraction on the right, cross multiplication would have been your best choice. But then when you have more than one fraction on the left or on the right, basically you best to go with a common denominator. So you find the common denominator, and once you find the common denominator, you extract the information you have on the top there. Okay, you can do away with your common denominator after doing all of that. Then you simplify, collect like terms, and then at the point minus y equals minus y minus 1 equals 12, we basically solve using simple solving simple equations basically. And then you move minus 1 over to the right and becomes plus 1, and then we divide both sides by minus 1, and we have that y equals minus 13. Very simple. I think we have one final example. So we have that if 3 over x plus 1 minus 2 over x minus 2 equals 4 over x minus 2, find x. Okay, so we're going to use the common denominator method. Okay, so step 1, we have our fractions here. We're going to find the common denominator, and if you notice something interesting here, we actually have variables in our denominators here. We had numbers before, but this time we have variables, which would make this solving this very interesting. So what would be our common denominator here? Our common denominator would be x plus 1, x minus 2. Okay, you basically just multiply what you have there, but at the lowest point you have x plus 1, x minus 2. Now if I divide x plus 1, x minus 2 by x plus 1, I'm left with x minus 2. Okay, so just like you would work for any fraction basically, but what you have is you have a variable as a denominator in this case. So our denominator is x plus 1, x minus 2. Okay, and we can divide x plus 1, x minus 2 by any of the denominators there. So x plus 1, x minus 2, and x minus 2 again. Okay, so X plus 1, x minus 2 divided by x plus 1 will give us x minus 2, multiplied by 3 would give us 3 multiplying x minus 2. X plus 1, x minus 2 divided by x minus 2 will leave us with x plus 1 multiplied by 2, and we have minus 2 multiplied by x plus 1. And then we have that we have x plus 1, x minus 2 divided by x minus 2 would give us x plus 1, and basically we have that multiplied by 4. Okay, so next thing we want to do, we want to extract the information at the top there. Okay, so we have that 3 multiplying x minus 2 minus 2 multiplying x minus 1 equals 4 multiplying x plus 1, sorry, equals 4 multiplying x plus 1. Okay, we simplify all of that and collect like terms, and basically we end up with minus 3x equals 12. Okay, so you simplify, collect like terms, move across the equal sign to have all your x's on the left and all the numbers on the right, and we're left with minus 3x equals 12. And from this point on, we simply divide both sides by minus 3, and what we have in the end is we have x equals minus 4. Very simple, very straightforward, and that would bring us to the end of this lesson. Okay, it's been a very short, simple lesson, and the concept is actually very simple. Basically, you're solving equations involving fractions. You can always cross multiply or find the common denominator. Now it's easier to cross multiply when you're working with just two fractions, okay, one fraction on the left and one fraction on the right. But when you're working with more than one fraction, it's best to find a common denominator. And yeah, bye for now.